Welcome back to the Scars and Spikes YouTube channel. Sydney and Tyler with you. Ronny Deila has been named the new head coach of Atlanta United. Introduced to the media today, introduced to the Atlanta United fan base today. And I know you and I, Tyler, and a lot of the fans share a lot of optimism around this hiring.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. You go back and you look at one of the first names that we all threw around back when Gonzalo Pineda was fired, and it was Ronny Deila. Henry wrote an article back in early July, I think it was, about names that could pop up, and the first on his list was Ronny. So it's kind of interesting. I never would have expected, like, once he went to Al Wada over in the UAE, that he would become available again so quickly. I'm not convinced that there wasn't some kind of chat, communication, whatever with them. But the thing is, like, he's here now. We knew that they wanted somebody with kind of essentially the entire resume that Ronny has, and here we are.
Yeah, he's won in this league. He won MLS Cup. He's won multiple championships with Celtic. So he knows what it takes to win, and he knows what it takes to succeed in a league in professional football. So I think his pedigree is just what Atlanta United needs. His passion, his willingness to connect with the community, connect with the fans, is what Atlanta United needs in this time. We mentioned the Ronny Roar he did at the end of most matches. So hopefully I get to do that a lot with Atlanta United.
I think, I've seen people kind of pop up kind of nonchalant about the whole signing. Some people are kind of saying that it just doesn't excite me. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to feel, but I was very adamant. Like, when I was asked, would I be excited about Jim Curtin being the head coach? Because that was kind of a name that, everybody was talking about. And I said, no, like, that's not the one that I want. I just don't feel like he had the pedigree that Atlanta United needs. And, like, I loved what Rob Valentino did when he was here, especially in the playoffs. But it was clear that, like, the front office was shooting for something much higher. And so now you're kind of left at this point where Ronny comes back available, and you have to jump on it, because who else with that pedigree is available, right? Mm-hmm. Like, back then you had Pochettino was maybe the big one.
Yeah.
He got snapped up pretty quick by the men's national team.
Yeah.
You've had a handful of others kind of floating around, but, like, we knew that Garth was going to give Rob time. We knew that this was going to be a long process after about the first month of no news. And then we settled in. So the fact that you now had Ronny come back available, I mean, to me, this is the best signing that you're going to make under the circumstances, and that checks all the boxes that Garth said he wanted to check.
So a bit of a red flag for some fans, and I'm glad that Ronny Deila addressed it during the press conference, is the time he spent with his previous clubs, Standard Liège, Club Brugge, Al Wada, certainly. But he mentioned, especially in the case of Brugge and Standard Liège, is a whole different ballgame. His words, verbatim, he said that, the margin for error is a lot thinner than it is in Belgium, in Europe, than it is in the United States. Now, that's not he didn't mean it as derogatory toward MLS by any stretch of the imagination, but the expectations there are just so heightened based on the ability you have in Europe to really build teams and develop teams. That being said, MLS being a league of parity, being a league where 1-2 good transfer windows can get you to the top of MLS, like you saw with the Galaxy, you're afforded maybe a little more time than you were in Europe. So he expressed excitement about coming to Atlanta, being here for the long haul. It didn't sound like he was going to want to jump around to a new role as soon as it became available, but he wants to plant some roots, it sounds like. I mean, let's come back to this day to see if that actually happens. But for now, he said, I want to stay in Atlanta. I will really root myself in Atlanta and make something big happen here. So that's something that certainly caught my eye, I'm sure, or caught yours too.
Yeah, I mean, he I had even said it on the show. That was kind of my concern. Like I liked everything about what he's going to bring in terms of coaching, but like, is he going to stay here long term? And it was addressed, like you said, even Garth. Like I think Ronnie said it, but it was one of the conversations that Garth in the front office had with him. Like, we want you to be here long term. This is not like a 1 year and done type thing. And of course, he's going in contract through 2027. So you got him for 3 seasons, and that's, I think, the sweet spot, right? Because you can have a lot of success in 3 seasons. You can get close in the first season and then have success in the last 2. And then, then you're having a conversation like, do we extend the contract? Whatever. Like there's options there. But I think the big thing is like Atlanta fans want somebody that's going to make this team successful, that's going to be here for a while. And they've never had that ever. Like you've had one or the other. You've never had both. So it would be really nice to have a guy that is committed to Atlanta, committed to staying, and not just staying here, but being a part of the community, being a part of the club. Like, he's a people person, which is great. We've all seen, the videos from when he was with New York City, how he is, like his personality is great personality. But now if you can just cap it off with some wins.
Disrobe after championship wins.
Exactly. Out there doing push-ups, halfway naked. Like I like the personality. I do. I'm excited about it. And if he can couple that with some wins and silverware, he will go down in Atlanta's young history as an absolute legend.
Yeah, and to kind of talk about the personalities of the coaches that Atlanta United have had, he's certainly different. Tata Martino, certainly a good guy, but I don't know if he was the extrovert, so to speak. Certainly didn't feel like it. Frank de Boer, maybe a little standoffish, but that's just the kind of European personality, European personality. Heinze, we didn't get too much time with him, so obviously not much to go off of. Yeah, I could certainly feel like his personality is kind of standoffish. Pineda, very open to fans, but I feel like Deila is certainly cut from that same cloth where he's outgoing. He has a lot of energy, and he definitely wants this project in Atlanta to succeed. So that's something that we can definitely take out of it as well. As far as how he prefers to play, that attacking style that we want in Atlanta United that has been sort of a hallmark of this club from the beginning, free-flowing attacking soccer, sounds like he's on board with it. And by extension, Garth Lagerwey and Chris Henderson are on board with that as well. So it's that symbiotic relationship that we talk about so much, that we have spoken about so much with Garth Lagerwey and Chris Henderson, and now with Ronny Deila, the 3 of them working in concert, working together to make Atlanta United what it needs to be and what it should be. And I'm sure that will inform the player selection, who they bring in. We'll see how Cleek falls into that category, that this signing was made or that trade was made without, I imagine, input from Deila, but I'm sure they'll work well together. But as you look at your DPs, like you look at your depth pieces, Deila will have a hand in that. He won't be he won't be the buck stops here guy, but he'll have a hand in who Atlanta United brings in from a technical standpoint, who can fit his tactical mindset. So I'm looking forward to seeing who that looks like, what names sort of surface for Atlanta United in that regard, and ultimately who they sign and who they acquire maybe through other channels.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that we've been reporting over and over again on Scarves and Spikes, because the way that Garth kind of presented it earlier this week at the press conference for Chris Henderson was this was kind of like the final piece of like the 5 pillars, like the 5 people that are going to be part of this like leadership team making a lot of these decisions. And it might not be as cut and dry as that, but essentially you have Garth, you have Chris Henderson as sporting director and the guy that's in charge of all soccer operations. You have now Ronny Deila, as the head coach. Tons of experience. He's won 6 trophies. Like the dude, he's been around the block, and including in MLS. You have Javier Perez, who's developing everything in the academy and the twos. And then you have David Tenney, who is the new director of high performance. That is very important because of the way Ronny likes to play. He even said it today in the press conference again, I think, or it might have been in the video that Atlanta put out. There's been a ton of information coming out today. But
Yeah.
he said, we need to be aggressive. We need to be on the front foot. We need to be constantly moving. Like you're going to have a team that's going to be, I think energetic might have been the word he used. So having a guy like David Tenney, who Garth even said, like pioneered a lot of the sports science stuff in the United States today, and it has been used not only in MLS, but in the NBA as well. Like all 5 of these guys bring a century's worth of experience in player acquisitions and things like that. They're all going to have some kind of say when
Yeah.
a DP name pops up, when a player name pops up, because they don't need just one guy making these decisions. They need a team who can everybody, throw in their opinion, their insight, everything that they've seen in their, 20, 25, 30 years plus in being in the business. So like this was the last piece. This is a very
Yeah.
important piece because at the end of the day, your coach needs to like the players, like the type of players he's getting. So yeah, I mean, I just think they're in a way better boat than they have been in years.
Yeah, and again, I mentioned earlier that symbiotic relationship. I don't know if I can stress that enough. You have all these individuals working together, working in concert with each other to hopefully elevate the team and make them better. One other thing he mentioned was he wants to be dominant at home. Atlanta United used to be a fortress for teams. Used to be really tough for teams to win in this building, in that building, I should say. But he wants to bring that back. We mentioned early in the season they have a lot of home matches, and in the middle of the season you have 6 away in a row. So very important, as we've mentioned, to get those points at home, take those opportunities at home, because you don't want to get to summer and having to scrape and push for points where you don't need to. Right? Certainly, you want to do well away from home, as you do at home, but you have to set the tone early, especially with so many opportunities to get points at home. So you can't waste any opportunity. You have to be able to gel pretty much as close to the beginning of the season as possible. That way, in the middle of the season, you're not having to chase points. Toward the end of the season, you're not having to chase points and try to sneak into the playoffs like they did in 2024. So it's just very important that Deila gets all these players on the right foot, gets all these players rowing in the same direction from the word go, essentially, and it's ready to go. And again, take those opportunities at Mercedes-Benz Stadium and get as many points as possible in your own building in order to position yourself for ultimately a top 4 finish in the Eastern Conference, hopefully better, but at least a top 4 finish, and give yourself really half a chance to make another run at MLS Cup in 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, I'm really excited about, you kind of mentioned it, but like his connection with the fans. They mentioned the Ronny roar that may happen. Just so much about like getting him involved with the community and getting Mercedes-Benz, as he called it a castle, which I thought was great. But like, you want to develop that fortress. You want to make it to where people absolutely hate coming to play there against Atlanta. Like it has to be that again. And when you have that, more than half the battle of the season is done. If you can handle your business at home, you are pretty likely to make the playoffs. And then from there, we all see what can happen. We saw it with Atlanta this year. As inconsistent of a team as that was, we saw what just making it to the playoffs can do. So, I mean, it just I'm really excited to see how he gets implemented with the fans. Like probably after the new year, like what does he do to kind of, because he's endeared himself to the fan bases of just about everywhere he's been, at least the ones he's been at long term. So I'm really excited to see, just kind of how that plays out. But on top of that, like, going back to the press conference with Chris Henderson and how it ties into this as well. Like Chris said, they don't want players on this team that aren't contributing. They don't want,
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, but they don't want players on this team that essentially are just taking up space. And you go back to what Garth said at the end of the season. They renegotiated some contracts, which we've now seen in guys like Ronald Hernandez, Jamal Tiare, to kind of reflect what they're doing on the team. If they're a depth player, a guy that's going to be on the bench a fair amount, like probably doesn't need to be getting paid like a starter. And
Yeah.
that's common sense. And that's part of kind of the rewind that Garth has had to do over the past couple of seasons. And I mean, I know like it sucks that it's taken so long, but like that's part of it. You're here now. You have all the pieces except for a couple of DPs and some other players in place, but everything's going in the right direction. This is a really exciting time to be an Atlanta United fan. Like, and we said this was the biggest offseason in the club's history.
Yeah.
And right now, in my opinion, they're hitting on all the right spots. I mean, Mateus Click, like that signing, freaking highway robbery of DC, man. Like, that's crazy. So it's exciting.
One other thing that kind of ties into what Garth Lagerwey and Chris Anderson has said about players is Deila said, I don't want people around who can't be ambitious or aren't willing or able to perform or develop. And one of the names he mentioned during his press conference was Tati Castellanos, the great player, of course, and YCFC right now in Europe. And he mentioned he was a diamond that was yet to be uncovered. The previous staff hadn't been able to really tap into that potential that he had, and he was able to come in and really help Castellanos become one of the top players in MLS and MVP during his peak years with NYCFC, and certainly a key part of that team that won MLS Cup. So I don't know if that necessarily means the next Tati Castellanos is waiting somewhere on this depth chart. Hopefully it is. Maybe it is. Maybe they reunite at Atlanta United. Who knows? But that's just an example he threw out as players that, hey, he was able to work with and really get them to raise their potential and play to their potential, and saw tremendous success. So I thought it was interesting that he brought up Tati's name as one of those players that he had in mind. Certainly a good use case, a good example to give, certainly during his time at NYCFC. So hopefully more of that for Atlanta United.
Yeah, and I mean, you take a look at Tati now and like what he's done. It wasn't just like he had a good season in MLS. Like he then got transferred over to Spain, and he's been doing well there. Like he's been around and is still scoring goals. He's still banging in goals. And if you can attribute a lot of that to Ronny Deila, what is one, I think, recurring theme over the past 3 years that a lot of fans were really frustrated about? They felt like you would have players that would come here and it seemed like they would personally regress.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's subjective, I think, in some ways, but in other ways, like I think you can point to guys like Shande Silva and Tristan Miyamba and like how they came in 2023 after the summer transfer window and killed it. And then 2024 rolls around and it's like, why? Like, where is that? We know it was there. Where is it? Like, what's going on? But then it even goes back as far as guys like Santiago Sosa and others. So like, there's definitely some validity to the argument. I mean, there's other factors in place, but if you can get a head coach and staff in place that are going to like not just take the player that's really good and bring him here and he just keeps being good, make him better, then that's the mark of a club that's going to go and win trophies over and over again. So I mean, look, Tati Castellanos is one guy out of many.
Yeah.
But if you can get that same kind of culture built here, that's nothing but good for Atlanta.
Yeah, I want to kind of correct the record on Castellanos. He won Golden Boot, not MVP. So, it's one of those things. But point remains. Yeah, could have been. But point remains, his work with NYCFC can't be overstated. Speaking of staff, he did mention during his press conference that a couple of players or a couple of his technical team members will be coming over from Al Wada. Elliot Parrish will be the goalkeeping coach, and Kenny Miller will be one of his assistants. As far as other technical staff members, he said, I don't come in with a lot of people. I don't want to build like this subculture within the team, which I really liked to hear that from him. He said, I want to lean on some of the staff that's already here at Atlanta United. We know that Liam Kern will not be continuing with the club, with Elliot Parrish coming in as a new goalkeeping coach. We don't know about Carl Robertson at this point, if he'll be still with Atlanta United or leaving the club. By the way, Kenny Miller did work with Carl Robinson in Vancouver, so just a little tidbit there. But yeah, we don't know who of this current staff is staying in, but we do know that Elliot Parrish and Kenny Miller are coming in. So just a little tidbit about the staff there. Anything else that kind of jumped out to you from what Ronny Deila said?
No, I mean, I think on that point, it's first of all, wish nothing but the best for Liam, because I don't know where he'll end up, but super talented, super awesome guy. I hope that what we just said about developing players applies to whoever the coaching staff may be as well. Like, I hope that the rest of Atlanta's, coaching staff and guys and gals around that are involved with the first team and down, every single day. I hope that he can teach them something as well, right? Like this doesn't just mean that like you bring in a new coach and that's just for the players. It's for everybody and vice versa. Like Daila's going to learn stuff from Atlanta. And I think that's great. That was kind of his reasoning why he doesn't always bring a whole crew with him, because you see coaches that do that. You see coaches that like, you don't hire the coach, you hire his whole squad, like his entourage and everything.
Yep.
That wasn't the case here. It's him and a couple of guys, and then he's going to, integrate with those that are still here, and hopefully they all become better than the sum of the parts, and they lead the team to be better than the sum of the parts, and they become successful. So, I mean, I like it. I'm excited about that. As far as anything else from the press conference, I mean, I think we've hit on all the main stuff. It's just nice that it's happened. Like, Merry Christmas,
Yeah, I'm surprised it happened before Christmas. Surprised it happened today.
Yeah. The fact that we've had Will Riley get signed today officially, the Click, rumor turned into an actual thing with the highway robbery part of it all in place from Atlanta United, like that, and then a head coach. That's all one day.
Yeah.
And it's right now we're recording this. It's 3:38 in the afternoon. Like, that's wild. So, and the super draft's still going on. So there's still going to be other news coming very soon.
We still don't know who the players will be coming in as our DPs.
Yeah.
Still to come. I'm sure rumors will be coming pretty fast and heavy now that everyone is in place. But for now, Ronny Deila is the new head coach of Atlanta United. Let us know what you think down in the comments. Of course, go to scarfsandspikes.com for all the coverage around the hiring and the other coverage. Rumors, we'll report that as well. Follow us on social media. We're on X, Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, and again, patreon.com/scarfsandspikes to support our coverage on a monthly basis, starting at $1.17 a month. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We really appreciate it. It's been a busy day for Atlanta United, but hopefully more to come, and we'll be there to cover it.